Welcome to another episode of the YA Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Keaton. With me always is Lorenzo Baylor.
What's up?
We're so excited about this episode you're about to listen to. We had a conversation with the one and only Bob Goff. Bob is an author and a speaker, professionally a lawyer, and so he's kind of world known. He does stuff all over the world. He speaks all over the country, and we just had a really good conversation. And so stay tuned. Get ready to hear our episode with Bob Goff.
I'm talking to you from Canada. I'm up in the, we live at the end of an inlet that's just way out in the bush. So it's so fun that the connection works great.
Oh, yeah. What are you doing in Canada?
We built this place 29 years ago. I'm older than dirt. But we built this place, and it's a place to come and write books and just chill out a little bit, that cadence of a lot of work and then a time of rest.
Sure.
So 29 years I've been doing, I charge hard for about 9 months, and then 3 months I come up here where there isn't another house. There's a little Young Life camp not far away, but they're in another house for 10,000 square miles.
Wow.
Wow.
Awesome. We're just in the bush. I love it. So the thing that I'm kind of learning out here is you just have to learn how to figure out everything. Everything is work, and we're totally green, right? Because there's no roads, there's no electricity, there's no anything. So you have to figure out how to do everything.
Wow.
I love it. It's been a fun challenge.
No electricity?
No electricity. So we have a glacier on the property. That's pretty awesome backyard. And the water runs off the glacier.
Yeah.
And then I built a little hydroelectric plant, and the gravity from the water spins a Pelton wheel, and it makes electricity. And I hooked it to one of Elon Musk's Starlinks.
Yeah.
And that's why we're talking.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Isn't that awesome?
Are there lights in the house or just candle?
Yeah. So like in this little place I'm in right now, the only way to get a signal is 2,000 feet up the mountain. So I came up 2,000 feet up the mountain to this little place that gets a peak at the horizon, because the walls are vertical up here.
Yeah.
So it's a peak at the horizon, and I've got solar power that are making the lights go on, and then the rest is hydroelectric. Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
Crazy.
That's awesome.
I love that
life.
you just figure out everything.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So are you working on anything right now? Is there anything that you're up there dreaming about or writing, or are you just...
Oh, yeah, totally. I just finished a devotional. I'd written a book last year, and I gave it to Thomas Nelson. They said, oh, it's the wrong book. I'm like, how do you write the wrong book? I didn't tell them what it was about. And they said, no, it was supposed to be a devotional. I was like, oh, well, I could knock out 50 devos pretty fast. So I started writing, and they said, no, 365.
Oh,
and
wow.
it's leap year. So I need 366. So I just got busy, and I cracked my knuckles. And so that'll come out December 10th. And then the book that I'm working on right now is around this concept of showing up, which is really applicable to what not only leaders are doing, but young people are doing.
Wow.
The idea of just showing up, not showing up partially there and distracted by one of these.
Yeah.
It would be the first time an Apple did us in. But to show up fully for your faith, show up fully in your friendships, show up fully. So it's about just showing up.
Wow.
And how do we do that in the middle of all the distractions that are around us?
So I got a
And the
roommate.
promise,
Oh, no, go ahead.
Oh, I was thinking about the promise of Scripture is that I think Satan doesn't want to destroy you, because that's one and done. I think he wants to distract you,
Yeah.
because it'll just take you away from every relationship that you've got. What were you saying about your
My
roommate?
roommate 2 days ago, 2 days ago, because he left. That's when he left. And we were just talking. And I just asked him what he'd been up to. We were at dinner. And he said, yeah, I'm reading this book called Dream Big by Bob Goff. And I said, oh, I'm talking to him. We're going to be talking to him on Monday. So we just got to talking. He's a big fan of your books.
Oh man,
And
I hope you guys are writing books as well. I mean, you've got so many thoughts, and that would be my hope for young people. Sometimes they think that books are for other people, but
yeah,
to just capture these ideas, they're kind of like butterflies. If you don't net them, they're going to fly away. So what I try to do is just capture these ideas. If something pings me, I was looking at Romans 8:28. That God, we know God works all things for good for those who love him. And it's a great kind of like memory verse and all that. But to just get your head on a swivel and to think of the times that God has worked out all things for good. And to think of all the nuance. I know what it takes to get enough electricity for us to talk. And it takes a glacier, a river, a hydroelectric plant, solar power, and a comfortable chair.
wow,
That's right.
that's crazy.
right.
Oh, and a 2,000-foot climb up a mountain.
Just a few things, right? How did you
Yeah,
make
but
that leap to say, all right, I'm going to write my first book. I'm going to take the chance. Nobody may read it, but I'm going to put these thoughts on paper and put it out there.
Yeah, we get this short little period of time here. There have been about 6 or 7 billion people, give or take, that have ever lived. That 15 billion that have ever lived, and 7 billion are alive right now. And so there's this short period of time that we're around. And for each one of us that's alive, 15 people aren't anymore. And they didn't set out to be invisible in their lives, but when they breathe their last breath, then some people who knew them would remember them fondly for the rest of their lives. But then when those people pass, then they're gone. And so I just want to get ahead of the curve. It's not like I have something brilliant to say. I just want to write for my kids.
Wow.
I want to just remember what I saw. And that idea of living a noteworthy life, you kind of need to take notes on your life. So as things are happening, and not just like a funny thing happened on my way to the store today, but to say things that are character attributes. I'll give you an example. We have to catch our own food up here. We either grow it or catch it. And I'm not going to off a deer because they're just so pretty. So we go out into the ocean here and we get prawns and crabs and whatever it is. I'm not a big fish guy, but I like the things that you can get. Once you catch a fish, you can turn it into a crab or a prawn or something. Well, these crab traps, the way to get the crabs in there is to put fish in it, and then they come after the dead fish and they jump in your trap. When you pull the trap out, it smells like dead fish, right? But it's kind of nasty, like getting them out of the trap. So I just deferred it. I'm like, I'll deal with that another day. Well, the bears can smell the dead fish.
Oh.
And yesterday, I went down to deal with these traps, and I got chased by a bear.
Oh, my goodness.
And I was thinking, I made myself a little note. I'm like, sometimes fear will do that to us. What we do is we're afraid of something, and so we defer dealing with it. We might be afraid of dealing with something in our faith, and so we defer it. We don't deal with it, and then we get treated by it later.
Oh, wow.
We have something that it just grows. It doesn't go away.
Yeah.
It actually attracts more danger. When you think dealing with it feels dangerous, not dealing with it turns out being more dangerous when you're dealing with crab traps and when you're dealing with these kinds of snares. Hebrews 12:1, these snares that are put in front of us, if we don't deal with it by keeping our eyes fixed on Jesus, we're just going to get tripped up. So I would say, if you were writing a book, I would say deferral. And then I would just say, what are all the ideas around deferral that make sense? And I would jot those down. I bet I send myself 100 emails a day. Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
I get them. I'm like, him again? Why?
Yeah, sure.
But there's something beautiful about netting those butterflies, and then to reflect on those. Maybe it's a hard time that you've gone through, and then you take some comfort from Romans that suffering produces endurance.
Yeah.
Endurance produces character, and character turns into hope. And so it's more than just a memory verse. You just say, yeah, actually, some of the hard things that you've endured turn into endurance. Endurance turns into character, and it's character that'll turn into hope. And for me, as an Enneagram 7, I'm like, want it to happen right now.
Yeah.
I want to go straight to hope.
Yeah.
But it's like those reminders along the way, net that butterfly, jot yourself a note. And then what I do is I just connect all the notes end to end and got a book.
What's funny is
So start. I'm counting on the two of you.
oh,
I think what would your books be about? If each of you were writing a book, what do you think it'd be about?
well, first of all, the only writing I do is writing songs. So, I mean, the thought of writing a book really just sends me into a spiral mentally right now as I think about writing a
you're
book.
kidding me.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I
It's
feel
just
like
a
I'm
long-
very succinct. It's hard for me to extend a thought past a couple pages. When I was in school, I hated writing. But a song is different because I don't know, there's just the challenge of trying to condense an entire thought or idea into a couple lines that rhyme, or however that's gonna go. I enjoy that, but when I was in school and we had to write a paper or something, they're like, we need 10 pages on blah blah blah. I'm like, man, I can really probably say this in 3, but you're trying to figure out all the tricks. But to a writer, to me, that's another level. That's a gifting that maybe I'll get it one day. Maybe get you to impart something into me. Pray for me to ask the Lord to give me something that I could put into a book. But man,
I think your songwriting gives you an unfair advantage because you've learned to be succinct, that you can say something that matters in few words. And sometimes what I've done for people that write books, everybody does it differently, but I say something relatable, and then I say something important,
yeah.
and then I change the camera angle, and then I don't resolve it.
Oh.
So if you say something relatable, something important, change the camera angle, don't resolve it. And that's actually what Jesus did. Matthew 13, it said he never spoke to anybody without telling him a story.
Wow.
Could you imagine going to dinner with him and say, would you pass the salt? About salt.
Yeah, here's a
while. But like the whole idea to maybe collect your thoughts and the stories that support it. Sometimes the bear trees you, and sometimes you tree the bear.
well.
And then think of scripture that supports that idea, and not forcing the scripture to support your idea, but something that just flows from the scriptures.
Well,
How about you, Ryan?
Yeah.
Do you have a book in you?
I would think I would have to start with like a devotional or something that would I think so communal, because that's just the space I'm in so much. And so you said like writing for your grandkids, like I just think about the group of people that I'm around. And like, so I think if I wrote anything, it would have to be for people in my spaces that like I would want to gather around with them and go through together, like in a more community aspect.
Yeah. So maybe a book it's just 90 stories that are 500 words long that are well told.
There you go.
So really, which is like less words than all the verses of Amazing Grace.
That's right.
So it's really just 90 stories that are well told. And my point in this, whether you think of writing a book or not, is to take notes. Get your head on a swivel, see what it is that God's doing, because he's up to things all the time. And sometimes it doesn't feel very mystical. I have a very meat and potatoes kind of faith. I don't see clouds that look like John the Baptist and all that. But what I do is I see God's hand at move, knowing from Romans 8:28 that in all things God works for good, and to say, where's the good in that? Even with some of the really difficult things that are going on, some of the challenges. And then I go, yeah, that kind of suffering, that kind of ambiguity and confusion produces the kind of endurance that we want. And particularly in this really charged atmosphere, I'm trying to push back a little bit about like labels people give people. Sometimes people say that they're toxic, or they're a narcissist, or they're a whatever. And there's a danger in trying to sum up other people
Yeah.
in a word to.
Yeah.
And I try to stay away from that. As a matter of fact, when I do that, I charge myself $500.
Oh, wow.
I give
Wow.
away $500 every time I try to sum somebody up.
Wow.
And here's the reason. It isn't because I have a lot of cash, because I don't. But doing that is costing me friendships. Doing that is costing me relationship.
Wow.
Doing that is costing me my faith. And so when I'm tempted to sum somebody up and say, what a jerk or whatever, I just think, nah, I'm going to Maui instead.
That's right. That's right.
I want to have a little bit more skin in that game. And so to find a way, maybe some kind of a circuit breaker, that when you're tempted to sum somebody up as a insert here, whatever comes to mind,
Right.
a politician, a this and that, Jesus summed people up with this word. He called us beloved.
Wow.
Like that was it. With all of our picadillos and screw ups and all of that, our insecurities and all that, to just say, man, we are a work in progress. And so I'm not going to be so presumptuous as to try to sum somebody up in a word or a phrase or whatever. I can still be heads up to say, that's really peculiar behavior. I bet there's something underneath that. Because if you have a behavior that doesn't make sense, it's usually there's an unfulfilled need.
Wow.
So behavior, unfulfilled need. And then underneath that unfulfilled need is a reason. And so to be a little bit more curious about what that is, Philippians 2:20, Paul talking about Timothy said, I don't have anybody like Timothy. He's a guy who takes a genuine interest in other people. And so if you're sum people up, it's like you're the opposite of that. He said he's a jerk, he's a televangelist, he's a whatever. And just don't do that. Just say they're beloved. I don't understand what they're doing, but I bet underneath that off-putting behavior is an unmet need.
Sure.
And I'm not going to try to figure out what theirs are. I'm going to try to figure out what my unmet needs are and bring those to Jesus.
Well, I'm sure the test that's really being tested in a year like this and that we're in right now, with so many varying opinions about this or that. So I have a question. When you're like sitting down to the write, you're like, okay, I'm working on this book. You mentioned you're working on a book. What does that process look like? Because you've taken us through, like, have an idea, you'll send some emails to yourself. When you're actually sitting down to organize all that, how do you kind of rein all that in? If I were to write a book.
Oh, that's going to be so fun. I want you guys to just start thinking of the things that you've encountered, things that are interesting. Did you guys ever have a Slinky?
Yeah.
When you were growing up?
Yeah.
The thing about the Slinky is it was invented by a guy, and he didn't know he'd invented it. He actually was installing these coils on Navy destroyers, so when they hit a wave, everything didn't shake. So he had these coils, they hit a wave, and it fell off the counter, and it would kerchunk, kerchunk, kerchunk.
Wow.
He showed his wife, because he's a dude, he didn't know what he'd done. And his wife figured out, you've just invented the Slinky. And they never charged more than $1 for a Slinky, because they wanted every kid to have access to a toy. There's something beautiful about it. There wasn't some big mission statement. They didn't start a nonprofit. They just said, we're only going to charge $1 for a Slinky. So that's the relatable part. Now, here's the important part. Some of our best discoveries are made totally by accident. That's the kind of chorus or verse you would put very succinctly in there.
Yeah.
And then I would flesh it out. Think of some of the things that you found out by accident.
Wow.
Didn't know this until that. And I found that by accident. Then I would say, take a new camera angle on it, meaning I wouldn't try to say what everybody else is saying. Some words and phrases get in the air supply. And I remember in the 70s, there was a 2 words, paradigm shift. Everything's a paradigm shift. And so there was something like Kill the Buffalo or something. Some book came out. Everybody started paradigm shift. What do you think are some of the common phrases now? Help me out. What are some of the things that are saying? I'm thinking of people like toxic this or narcissist that, or I'm not saying there wasn't a paradigm shift them. I'm not saying there aren't narcissists and people that are creating unpleasant environments, but can you see how there's like a frame?
Yeah.
Did we lose him?
Canada. The bear got him. He's frozen on us for a moment. Hopefully he comes back.
Yeah.
9. I mean, he's just weirdly tall. And we were on the Nile River. We went over these class 5 rapids. There's no class 6. You're just dead.
Yeah.
When we went over the rapid, Richard launched out of the boat into these alligator-infested waters, and we got stuck in this eddy at the bottom of this waterfall for 45 minutes.
Oh, wow.
With alligators?
Yeah, well, no, I was in the boat. Richard was out, and we're stuck in the eddy. What I would do is I would talk in my writing about what it feels like to be stuck in an eddy, and I would never have Richard get back in the boat. And everybody's wondering, like, what happened? So I think sometimes in our faith, we labor maybe a little bit longer than we need to in trying to wrap everything up. And then the answer is Jesus. And then you just do this. We'll just pray and it'll be okay. And I'd still do all those things, but I would try to stay away from the predictable conclusions because all the predictable stuff makes people turn off.
Sure.
I would just ask questions. You know, what's God? Where have you seen God moving in your life? If you say all things work for good, give me an example of something that's worked for good in your life. Take a genuine interest. How about just for the two of you, Ryan? What's an example just off the top of your head of something that worked for good in your life? And then Lorenzo, I want to hear the same from you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know, as I'm sure a lot of people have experienced, just like transition of well, I know you experienced this to a degree, but career, right? And so I was a youth pastor for a long time, and then now I'm in this role doing young adult ministry for the convention. And so that wasn't necessarily something bad, but it was a career shift that I never thought would happen. But God has worked so many good things out of it, right? And so it was a leap of faith of me having to say, okay, I don't understand what this next season's going to look like, or even if I'm equipped to do it, but I trust God is going to lead me there.
Yeah. So here's the Lorenzo's phrase for his song, that life is filled with 80 to 100 years of ambiguity, followed by an eternity of certainty. Then what you do is you just flesh out this real life thing where I used to do this and then I did that, and how these transitions, it can feel like whiplash. But if we knew that God worked for good, then we just trust. We push out the 5th of 37 miracles is Jesus meeting a guy on the beach and telling these fishermen, push out a little deeper. And so what I did as a guy named Ryan is I pushed out a little deeper. And what I found was this. I think that's beautiful. Lorenzo, what's an example for you where you saw God working for good?
So mine won't be as spiritual as Ryan's was, but so me and my friends, I have 6 friends, and they've kind of been there for a while, but we've really gotten into training and working out, right? One of the things we like to do is run up this hill. It's downtown Nashville. It's probably about 200 meters or so. And we run up this hill, we walk down, and I hate it. I hate it, Bob's. I hate it more than I hate anything in this world, probably. Well, the first time I did it, I about almost died. We just did it this past Saturday, and I pushed a little further because we've been training consistently. We get up and go at 5 every morning, Monday through Friday, and on Saturdays we'll do this hill. And I noticed, I'm not going to use the word easy, but it was not as painful as it once was. And I've been thinking about that for a while. Like, I'm, been doing this for a little over a year now, and looking at where I was, where I am now, I've been really thinking about the joy of pain. It's something about the pain of that training when you get on the other side of it and see the benefits. My friend was trying to get me to take something for soreness, and I told her, I said, weirdly, I like the soreness in a weird, messed up kind of way. Something about the soreness is the reward for hard work. It's the reward for what I've been doing. So I've seen not only a physical change in doing that, but a mental one. In this past, little over a year in doing this training. So that's probably it's not as it's kind of seeped over into every different areas of my life, including my work here at the Tennessee Baptist Mission Board. Just that idea of like hard things can be good, even though they're excruciating.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah.
I think you just nailed it. Suffering produces endurance. Endurance turns into character.
Yeah.
Character turns into hope. I think that just find something relatable, a story like that, super relatable, a story about leaving a job. Find Cortez. Remember when he was here with his soldiers and they were deciding, should we go home? And he just burned the ships.
That's right.
What's your next question?
Yeah, that's crazy.
So I love that burn the ships moment that you experienced, trying to say, I don't know, man, I'm just going to push into the ambiguity. And then find some, we don't have Bible studies, we have Bible doings.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want to just study, we actually want to do something about it. And anyone who hears these words and doesn't do anything about them, so when we get together, we say, so how do we do it? Matthew 25, hungry people, thirsty people, sick people, strange people, naked people, people in jail, James, widows and orphans. So there's a lot of people looking for a plan for your life.
Wow.
And Jesus said, you want to find me? You got to find them. Hungry people, thirsty people, sick people, strange people, naked people, people in jail.
Wow.
So I teach at Pepperdine Law School, but I also teach at San Quentin Penitentiary.
Oh.
And I've been teaching there for almost a decade. And I got the same guys in my class because they're all in for life anyway.
There you go.
I got Manson family members. I mean, I went at Christmas time and they never let anybody go in with a costume because you could smuggle in a metal salt or something or drugs or so. But I'm pretty good friends with the warden. He let me go in and I'm sitting in the yard. And one of these Manson family members comes and he sits in my lap. And he's a buddy named Bruce. And Bruce has been in the class for years. And he said, you know what? I've never sat in Santa's lap before.
There you go.
I said, well, I've never had a serial killer sitting in my lap before.
There you go.
But I'm telling you, I asked him, what is it that you want for Christmas?
Oh, wow.
And I was thinking he was going to say an alibi or something,
right.
Cheesecake. And he said, you know what I'd like? I'd like to just get a phone call on Christmas morning. And so the warden set up a little video station and Bruce sat down and on Christmas morning we talked. And then he said, hey, hang on a second. And he got out of the picture and the next guy came and sat down there and we talked. And he said, hang on a second. He left and the next guy came and there was a line of guys out the door. That's Matthew 25. Hungry people, thirsty people, sick people, strange people, naked people, people in jail. So what I want for young people is to move from agreeing with Jesus to doing something.
Wow.
And he doesn't need your help.
Wow.
I keep asking every day.
That's awesome.
But he wants you to engage your faith and he never asks you to agree with him. I can't think of one time in the scriptures where Jesus said, agree with me. He said, if you believe these things, then do something about it. And it's not because I need your help. It's because you will understand more about me if you do the things. And I'm leaving the trail of breadcrumbs. Hungry people, sick people, strange people, naked people, people in jail.
There you go.
And I've realized about myself that I've spent my entire life avoiding the people Jesus spent his entire life engaging. That would be like a lyric in a song. And then Lorenzo, you would expand on that to say, why do I do that?
Yeah.
Why do I avoid people Jesus said to engage? And the reality is I just don't want to get any on me.
Wow.
I don't want to hang around cantankerous people. I don't want to hang around people who are cussing up a storm or I don't want to hang around mean people or evil people. I don't want to hang around people who are arrogant. And the reality is, man, they're just as insecure as me. I've just found a way to deal with my insecurity that is as off-putting as they have.
Uh-huh.
And so just that idea of Bible doing, that's just been a really neat, it feels like this aroma of Christ, like, it's not like too much perfume in the elevator.
Yeah.
It just, you smell the cookies in the oven.
Is that the name of the next book, Bible Doing?
Yeah, I think the next book I'd write, I'm not kidding, is one thing that I've got after having written a couple books is stalkers.
There you go.
And so they're not trying to hurt me, but people do some weird stuff. I remember going to turn on the coffee pot at like 5 a.m. And I look out my back window on my porch and there's a dude just sitting there. And so I opened the door. I'm like, kind of like Billy Crystal and City Slickers. I'm like, hello. And the guy's first words, he said, "I'm not a stalker." And I'm thinking in my thought bubble, all evidence to the contrary.
Yeah.
And he said, read some book in my, there was a story in there about some people that got engaged on the back porch. And he said, I just wanted to experience what it'd be like to be on your back porch. And again, I'm thinking in my thought bubble, you're going to experience a restraining order. But I think that the thing about stalkers is they know more about a person than they ought to know, right? They know all the facts about the person, but they don't know the person. Lorenzo or Ryan, wouldn't it be creepy if I said, hey, how was that wedding on Tuesday? You'd be like, dude, like, we don't hang out. You're not supposed to know that. Or if I said, hey, Ryan, what about, how's that, car of yours working? You'd be like, you know my car? It would just feel creepy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we know all of this information about Jesus, but we don't hang out with him.
Wow.
And so I think a book title I would make is Stalking Jesus.
There you go.
I would say, like, I don't want to be a stalker. I don't want to know all this facts about Mary and Nathan and Bartholomew and everything else, and 307 questions and the 3 answers he gave and all this stuff, but without actually doing the stuff that he said to do if you want to be with them. Hungry people, thirsty people, sick people, strange people, naked people, people in jail, widows and orphans.
Wow. Well, you've given us a lot to think through, a lot to process, but if there's just one last nugget that you could leave with us or our listeners, what's just one word of encouragement or one thought you'd like to leave us with?
Here's what I would do, particularly for people listening that are exposed to a lot of opinions, because everybody's got an opinion. They're like ears. Everybody's got a couple, except who was the one that lost one? Van Gogh? But I wouldn't ask people, what's your opinion? I would ask people, what's your experience, right? So I've sailed across the ocean a couple times. I'm not sure why I could drop some major weight because I just hurled the whole way over. But I've sailed across the Pacific, and there was a guy, we're fixing to do it again. And there was a guy that said, oh, you should take this course and get this lifeboat and bring this food. And he had all these opinions. And I said, like, oh, wow, are you a sailor? He said, no, I've never left Ohio. He had an opinion about everything. What I should have done is asked him, hey, what's your experience? And I didn't think bad things because he lived in Ohio, but it gave me some context for his opinion.
Sure.
So if somebody's giving you opinion about friendships, say, tell me about a couple of your friendships. I'm not like quizzing him or vetting him. I'm just trying to understand if somebody's given you financial advice and they've gone bankrupt 3 or 4 times, it would just be good context for the opinion. So I would do that in faith. I would say when somebody talks to you about relationships, say, tell me about a couple, tell me about the 6 guys, Lorenzo, that have been really tight with you. Ryan, tell me about the 8 people that have propped you up, that have really shown up for you. And as soon as I understand your experience, as soon as I take an interest in you, then what you say is going to really land with me.
Sure.
So that's what I would say in closing. I would say, ask people that are experienced, not their opinions, because these days, everybody's got an opinion.
Yeah.
Well, at risk of having more people on your back porch, if there was somebody who just really resonated with something but had more questions and wanted to connect with you, what's a way that people who are listening could connect with you, ask more questions if they had follow-up?
Oh, here's the crazy thing. I just think of Jesus as so available, and I'm not Jesus, but I could be like him, the scriptures say. So I put my cell phone number in the back of 4 million books.
Wow. That's why they're in your back porch. Bob, that's why they back there.
I can't get a thing done. So I'm a pretty easy guy to find.
Okay.
That's why you in Canada. That's why you
I know.
That's why you're in the middle of nowhere. That's funny.
Right. Well, Bob, thank you so much for taking some time out of your resting period to hop on this podcast with us. And
no, what a treat to be with you guys. And thanks for swinging for the fences with your love. You guys can be running small countries if you want, but you've got your eyes fixed on Jesus, and you've got it fixed on getting messages of hope out to people. And so there's just nothing better than that. That's what we're supposed to be about. That's the aroma of Christ in the world. And so thanks for being that.
Well, thanks, Bob.
Bob.
Hope you have a continued rest of the period that you're out in Canada, and yeah, good luck in your next adventure.
Yeah. I'm going to go find that bear.
There you go.
Right. That's right.
All right, guys.
All
so
right.
long.
See ya. Thank you.
Man, what a conversation with Bob Goff. He is amazing. First of all, he's awesome. He's hilarious, but dropped some nuggets that were just so profound and not hard to grasp. So what we enjoyed having and talking to him on the podcast for sure.
Yeah, and so thanks for listening to another episode. If you've not subscribed to us, make sure to go like, share, subscribe. Be on the lookout for other episodes because we have other conversations coming up, like this one that we had with Bob. So make sure to get this episode out. I know that his name is recognizable, so you want to make sure to share it so that other people can hear it. And then, just thank you again. Thank you for your gifts to the cooperative program, Golden Offering for Tennessee Missions, because without those, this podcast, the things that we do like this wouldn't be possible. Again, special shout out to Colby Mike, who produces this episode. And until we see you next time, go win Tennessee for Jesus. We'll see you again soon. Bye.